So we've been spending a lot of time talking about reducing radicals and condensing them together and then simplifying those square roots and cube roots and fourth roots and so on. We're going to kind of change gears a little bit for the rest of this section, and we're going to talk about how you take something that's maybe written in radical form and write it so that it's a variable or a number written with an exponent. Now with the exponents for radical signs, they're all going to be rational, which means they're all going to be fractions. And they're going to look like this form, m over n, okay? And where the m and where the n comes from is inside of your guys' square root sign, okay? So like right here kind of demonstrates what's happening. Where on the radical sign, the number that's in the corner of the radical sign, so if it's not there, that means that it's a 2. And other than that, they'll have like a 3, a 4, 5 out there in that little corner of the radical sign. That's your n. So that's going to go on the bottom of the fractions. That's always your denominator. The m, then, that is whatever variable exponent is. So like if the x is raised to the second power underneath the square root sign, or if it's raised to the third power, that's the number that's going to go into your numerator, into the top of the fraction. Now, if it doesn't have a number for a letter, so if it's just x, or it's just a, or it's just a 3, remember, all of those are raised to the first power, technically. They all have like a little 1 there. We just don't write them, just like we don't write 1s in front of plain letters by themselves. But it is there. For example, when I see the square root of x, okay, it's a regular square root, which means that your n is 2, because it's a square root. It's a regular square root sign. Now, x is by itself on the inside there. It doesn't have an exponent written, which means that it's a 1. So m is equal to 1. So if I want to write this out, it would be x raised to the 1/2 power. Because you're putting m over n. So how do you guys think we would rewrite number 2? Yep. X raised to the power of 2/3. Okay, so you guys write down what you think number 3 should say. So instead of having a letter, they give you a number. So 27 is going to be the base. Now 27 isn't squared or to the third or anything like that, so it's got an exponent of 1. And the root is a 3, so we're going to write 27 to the 1/3 power. Now if I want to go the other way with it, so 4 and 5 have a number raised to a rational exponent. We can take this now and rewrite it as a radical sign. Okay, so 16 to the 1/4 power. Remember, the 1 would be your m, so that would be like what 16 is raised to. So 16 would be raised to the first power. I don't need to write that. You don't need to write a little 1. If you want to, because it makes you feel better, you can. So you can put a 1 next to the 16. That 4 then tells you what the root is that's outside of that radical. So I'm going to put a radical sign over 16. I'm going to put a little 4 in the corner. Which, if I wanted to evaluate this, like if I actually found the fourth root of 16, so you can either think about that or use your calculator, this is going to equal 2. Okay, 2 to the 4th power is 16. You guys try 5. Rewrite it as a square root problem, and then simplify it. So this should have just been the square root of 36. You could put a 1 next to 36, put a 2 out in the corner of the radical sign if you want to. What is the square root of 36 though? 6. All right, now what we're going to do for these next couple is just practice writing it in radical form. We're not going to worry about evaluating for right now. So these ones are going to start to have two different numbers for your m and for your n, like we saw before, but instead of like ones, you're going to start seeing other numbers that you actually have to write. Okay, so we've done a little bit of this already, but this is here to just kind of remind you of the way that we kind of can go back and forth between these. So for 8 to the 3/5, 3 is your m, 5 is your n. So this is going to be the fifth root of 8 to the third power. Okay, so why don't you guys go ahead and try 2 and 3 there. Write down what you think it should say. Okay, for number 2, you should have had something that looked like this. The fifth root of 2. And for number 3, you should have had just the square root of 6. Again, I'm not going to be picky if you're putting like a 1 here, a 1 here, and a 2 there. If you need to put those numbers in there so that you remember where it goes, I'm okay with that. Just know that like on a problem that they give you, they may not have those things written. Okay, so now let's go backwards the other way again. So on the next page, they want you to write these 3 problems using rational exponents. So that means that they want you to write it as an exponent. Rational means that it's got to look like a fraction. When they give you like a quantity, like number 1 has 3x, it's the square root of both of those terms. So sometimes you'll see it written where they put 3x in parentheses, because that exponent is going to have to go to both the 3 and the x. It's not just going to one of the terms. Now, since it's a square root sign, both of these have just an exponent of 1, and a regular square root sign means 2, so that would be 3x raised to the 1/2 power. So they'll put that on the outside of the parentheses. I would say you really only are going to see those parentheses show up when you have multiple quantities underneath the radical sign. So like a number and a letter, or letters. They might have more than one letter. Okay, so you guys try to write out 2 and 3. So for 2, I'm going to put 3a in parentheses, and then that's raised to the 4/5 power. For number 3, since it's just an x, I'm not going to worry about putting parentheses around x. You still could if you wanted to. And this is going to be to the 5/3 power. Alright, for the last couple of, this last set of problems that we're going to work through, we're going to rewrite it, and then we're actually going to evaluate it as well. So we're going to simplify to find what the answer would be. So we're going to take it a step further, and we're going to actually square root the number, kind of like what we did a little bit ago when we started this, and then, or do like the 3rd root, the 4th root, whatever it might ask you to do. I just want to scroll back up for a second. Look at right here. I highlighted this in yellow. This was on the previous page. Notice how, like these first 2 pieces here, they look very similar, but they have the M in a different spot. Okay, like the first one has M with the letter underneath the radical sign, and the middle one has M on the outside of parentheses. You can write it either way. And sometimes, depending on the numbers that you're dealing with, it might be easier to put M underneath the radical sign, or it might be easier to put it on the outside. Really what's happening here is on the first one, if I were to evaluate something that looks like this one here, I would have to take A and raise it to its power first, so raise it to its exponent, and then try to root it. Where on the second one here, this one, I'm rooting the number first and then raising it to its exponent. Either way, you're going to get the same answer, so it kind of just depends on how you want to handle these next couple of problems. But I just wanted to show that to you so that if I start writing it a different way, you know why I'm doing that. Okay, so for number 1, it says 32 to the 3/5 power. So that 5 tells me that I'm doing the 5th root of 32. And 32 is to the 3rd power. Now I know that I can find the 5th root of 32. So I'm going to put parentheses around this and put a 3 on the outside for this one. Because now what I'm going to do is grab my calculator and I'm going to take the 5th root of 32. That gets me 2. And then I still have that 3, so now this is 2 to the 3rd power, which is going to be 8. What you could have done is you could have taken 32 and raised that to the 3rd power first. That's a big number, okay? If I take 32 to the 3rd power, it's 32,768. But then if I take the 5th root of that number, if I take the 5th root of that big number there, I do still get 8. So it doesn't really matter the way that you guys do it because you're going to get the same answer. Something else that might be helpful is to kind of check your work. Your calculator, if you actually take that number 32 and you raise it to the exponent 3/5, so if you type that in, your calculator should give you an 8. So you can always use that as kind of like a checking method, is to just type it in and see if you get the same answer. Okay, so for number 2, I have 81 to the 1/2, 81 to the 3/4 power. So I'm going to take the 4th root of 81 and then raise that to the 3rd power. Or take 81 to the 3rd power first and then take the 4th root of that. The 4th root of 81 is a 3. So then I have 3 to the 3rd power. What is 3 to the 3rd power? So 27. Okay. What would you guys get for number 3 if you did that one? 7, because 1/2 means square root. So it'd be the square root of 49, which is just a 7. All right, let's take a look at number 4. Because 4 has more than just a number. It's got numbers and letters. So raised to the 1/5 means that we're doing the 5th root here. So I'm going to write my root sign with the 5 out, and now I've got 32 underneath there and an x to the 10th. Okay, so let's use our calculator. Take the 5th root of 32. And tell me what you get. 2. The 5th root of 32 is 2. 2 times itself 5 times, you're going to get to 32. Now, for the letter, for the x, what do we do with the 10 and the 5? Divide. So what is 10 divided by 5? 2. So this is going to be 2x squared. Okay, you guys try number 5, that bottom one on that page. So you should have had the 3rd root of x to the 12th power. What is 12 divided by 3? 4. So this one should have just been x to the 4th. Okay, on the last page here, there's 3 left. But Can you guys tell me what's different about these? They have negative signs. Okay, and we've talked in the past, when you have exponents, we do not want to have negative exponents. Okay, we've always had to take something with a negative exponent and drop it to the bottom of the fraction. So that's what we're going to do for these ones, is before we start to rewrite them with a root sign, with a radical sign, we're going to first start by putting a 1 over them. We're going to drop them to the bottom of the fraction. So since they're all whole numbers, that means that you're going to put 1 over that number, so 36, and then it's going to change that exponent from a negative to a positive. So 1 over 36 now to the 3 over 2 power. So let's rewrite this then. We still are going to have 1 on top. Now the 2 on the bottom tells us that it's a square root sign, and it's 36, okay, is underneath that. And then I'm going to put parentheses around that and put the 3 on the outside. So what is the square root of 36? 6. So the square root of 36 becomes a 6, and then you still have that raised to the 3rd power. The last thing you need to do is take 6 to the 3rd power, which is going to be 216. You're going to get 1 over 216. And again, if you want to check that, you should be able to type into your calculator 36. You'll probably have to use your caret key for the exponent. That's like that, kind of like an upside down V key. And you're going to put in a -3/2. Now, you'll probably get a decimal of some sort, but your calculator can convert decimals to fractions. And I do get 1 over 216 on mine. So it is checking out. Okay, if you guys want to try 7 and 8, go ahead and I'll give you a minute or two to do that, and then I'll walk through them with you. Okay, check yours with mine. I went step by step, rewriting it, and then I just went ahead and simplified it there.